Hi everybody, welcome, and I'm glad that you're able to join me here today. I know that we've had a little trouble with scheduling, so I really appreciate everybody coming and coming a week late to hear this presentation on getting to success. This was originally a presentation that I gave to a Toastmasters workshop on professional development, personal development, goal setting, and other topics selected to try to help everybody level up in 2021. After, well, let's be honest, the incredible disappointments of 2020, we are all looking forward to a way more productive year this time around. And my objective today is to share some ideas and insights to help you be even more effective as you're implementing all the goals and resolutions that you have for the coming year. So let's get started. I'm sure when you signed up for this presentation this morning, you had no idea I was going to spice up your life, but the Spice Girls definitely had the right idea in their hit single. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Success means a lot of things to a lot of people. By definition, it means achieving an aim or a purpose. However, since everyone's desired outcomes are different, everyone's definition of success will also differ. For instance, you might think there are levels of success, whereas someone else thinks of it more as a black and white, yes or no kind of thing. So let's take a minute to get in touch with how you regard success. So if you will, with me, close your eyes and dig deep. What is success? How will you know if you've achieved it? Has there been a time in your life when you felt successful? How did that feel? What are your sensory memories of that time? Why do you want success? Is it to return to that feeling? Now, what happens if you don't achieve success? How would that impact your life? Maybe even more scary, what happens if you do achieve success? How does that feel? What would be different about your family, your career, your future, your entire life? Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. I wanted you to take a moment to get in touch with your idea of success for a reason. I find, particularly at this time of year, it's easy to get short-sighted and focus on tactical goals instead of long-term objectives. If you've ever had corporate training on goal setting, you're probably familiar with this acronym SMART. To maximize the likelihood of success, your goals should meet each of the following criteria. They should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. With that template in hand, we optimistically create or recycle a whole list of ways to recapture that elusive feeling of success. However, sometimes we get caught up in the idea that if we can just cram our lives full of enough goals and actions and results, that will inevitably yield happiness. But that may not be the case. It is absolutely possible to very efficiently and get precisely nowhere. You can have perfect attendance in school and never actually learn a thing. You can ride 10 miles on a stationary bike and never travel an inch. You can put all your energy into achieving goals which provide the appearance of success, but never deliver on the emotional or psychological experience of success you're actually craving. Put differently, we need to make sure our efforts are both precise and accurate. The SMART template will give you precision because it helps you consistently hit your target. However, you still need clarity of purpose in order to aim for the bullseye. So before I started my own business, I worked for a large corporation which demanded that we write professional goals for the coming year. I supervised a team, and I had all sorts. I had one employee who was absolutely in this first category, busy all the time, working very hard, and practically insulted if I, as a manager, questioned anything about her work. However, she often lost sight of what was important in favor of completing what I would consider busy work. If there were lots of things to do, she would focus on what she could get done quickly, efficiently, but that may not have been the most urgent or the most important things to get done. She was very precise, but missed the mark on occasion. Now, the second scenario is your classic hit and miss. That employee was very hard to evaluate at the end of the year because some contributions really were spot on, but others were total losses. He had occasional accuracy, but not precision. Now, if you have any employees in the third category, trust me, please put you and your team out of your own misery and just can that person immediately. A wild cannon is completely unpredictable and therefore unhelpful. We should all be striving for the fourth condition, highly accurate and highly precise. The epitome of this is the sniper's motto, one shot, one kill. At this level, there's a perfect balance between effort and efficiency. Action is taken, but no action is wasted. In order to achieve that level of effectiveness, the first step is to get specific. You may remember that specific is also the first word in the SMART goal acronym. However, in that context, it refers to specific steps required to reach your goal. When I say get specific, I mean that you need to reach crystal clarity about the ultimate objective. Follow the counsel of posh, sporty, baby, ginger, and scary. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. It's going to take some introspection and a willingness to dig past the easy answers. Let's look at an example. Here's a familiar life plan. Go back to school to get a better job, to make more money so you can retire at age 60 and start traveling internationally. Sounds perfectly reasonable, clear, and perfectly suited to a series of SMART goals to get you there. The problem with the goal approach is the fallacy of sequence. The ultimate objective, traveling internationally, is way at the bottom, at the end of a years-long regimen of short and mid-term goals. The danger is in thinking that once a plan is formulated and the goals declared, that the only way forward is through all those hoops you've generated for yourself. Then if there are roadblocks at any stage, you feel thwarted. What if your financial aid doesn't come through so you can't go back to school? What if there's a recession and you can't get a better job? What if you have a health crisis and need to retire before age 60? Since there are so many steps in front of your eventual goal, good old Murphy practically guarantees something will go sideways before you can reach the real payoff. Let me give you another example from my personal life to further illustrate this linear thinking. I adopted my son 5 years ago. I acquired him when he was 14, so he's 19 now, and well on his way to independent living. However, he's not quite there yet. The current plan is for Chandler to get a job and build up some savings. His buddy Michael's going to move into my place, then they will rent from me. I will move out to a larger place with more bedrooms, get relicensed for foster care, then adopt more teenagers. Sounds like a great plan, right? It's absolutely perfect because I thought it up myself. The problem is, Chandler's broke. Since he grew up in an environment of scarcity, he spends whatever he earns immediately. He practically repels money. Now, Michael's on track, but we haven't got any move-in date or even a timeline from him. So who knows when he'll be ready to execute on this brilliant master plan, if I do say so myself. Since I got stuck at steps 1 and 2, which frankly are beyond my control, I've been feeling incredibly frustrated for months. On top of all the other disappointed hopes for 2020, feeling like I'm not delivering on my life's mission is devastating. Then I had a stroke of genius. I channeled my inner Spice Girl and asked myself what I want, what I really, really want out of adoption. First, I am passionate about helping foster kids, particularly teenagers. Now, I firmly believe that everyone has a gift for helping a particular group or cause, and this one is mine. However, I've done a lot of volunteering, so I already know that I'm not satisfied with the occasional drop-in visit. I want everyday contact. I want to make meals and teach kids how to cook. I was a fantastic student in high school, and I can tutor everything except physics and foreign language. Though I'll tell you, after taking a year of French, Chandler's French is worse than mine. Most of all, I really want to be there for those life-changing conversations that happen at the weirdest times. I know I want to be a long-term presence in these kids' lives, even if it doesn't end up being truly permanent for whatever reason. And I also think that I can handle more than one at a time. Now, I've certainly been grateful for the one-on-one attention I was able to lavish on my son for the past 5 years, but I've grown as a parent, and frankly, we need at least 2 more to make board games interesting. So, given all these criteria for my ultimate objective, is there any other way to get what I want? Well, as my mother would say, I had a scathingly brilliant idea. Are you ready? Get a job as staff in a group home. Now, I own my own real estate investing company, so I don't really need a job per se. However, I do need an outlet to feed my soul, and being an employee at a group home is the closest thing to parenting these kids directly. It meets all of my ultimate objectives. Yes, there are some trade-offs. I'd need to maintain some professional distance, and the arrangement does lack permanency. However, the scheduling actually works out. Group homes utilize more staff in the afternoons and evenings when the kids are done with school, so I would have mornings to run my company during normal business hours. Working 2 jobs isn't perfect, but if the choice is pursue my real passion or keep waiting on 2 19-year-old kids to get their acts together, I think you know which one I'm going to pick. So I'd like you to take a little time for you to get clarity about your own objectives. Hopefully you've already been thinking while I've been talking. I'd like you to really dig and delve to get to the ultimate root of your desires. Remember that earlier example of sequential steps? I need this to get to that. Well, if you can think of anything further down the line, then you haven't really traveled down the full path and reached the true end product. This is where you have to do some soul searching. For instance, getting a degree can either be a stepping stone or a destination, depending on the person. Once you've identified whatever that final state of being is, you can look back down the path to see if there are any shortcuts between here and there. Can you remove any unnecessary steps? Can you accelerate the process? What can you do to shorten or eliminate entirely the waiting? Next in the process of getting to success is to get serious. This means you need to commit to your objective with a whole heart and pursue it with determination. It's easier to do once you're in touch with your ultimate purpose, back at step 1. However, achieving your dream will come with a price. Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time is our poster child for this stage, because creating success where it didn't exist before is like conjuring magic. As he says, magic always comes with a price, dearie. Sometimes the sacrifices are small, a little bit of time, a little bit of money, and presto changeo, mission accomplished. Sometimes the sacrifices are very costly. Lost opportunities, strained relationships, time, money, careers, friends. The list is endless. I'm not by any stretch advocating for pursuing success at any cost. In fact, I'm trying to caution you against it by alerting you to potential risks. My background is in real estate investment, so I'll use a rental property as an example. Maybe buying a little condo and renting it out sounds like a great idea to generate some passive income. However, you owe it to yourself to do some homework first. Is the HOA in the black, or are there expensive owner assessments on the horizon for new roofs or plumbing? Can you cover the mortgage if you have vacancies between renters? How will you handle minor repairs the landlord usually covers? Any of those issues could cost additional time or money, and you need to factor that in before you invest. If you don't, you'll be basing your decisions only on a best case scenario. If anything interferes with that rosy outcome, you could at best be disappointed, or at worst, be forced to shell out big bucks just to recoup some of your investment. In financial modeling, we call this stress testing. You have to run through a host of scenarios to really determine if your desired outcome is both likely and worth it in the end. There will always be hidden costs when pursuing your dreams. You'll need to make sure in step one that your ultimate objective really is worth that potential cost. Again, I don't mean to scare anyone with doom and gloom. Think of it more as a realistic assessment of your risk tolerance. When your objectives are particularly ambitious, it may be necessary to make more sacrifices than you originally planned. However, when you acknowledge necessity, you invite invention. Now, I, like you, or many of you maybe, am deeply ashamed of the number of hours I spent watching Netflix in 2020. But this particular show was completely worth it. How to Live Mortgage-Free with Sarah Beanie was actually a BBC series. Britain has a fairly high cost of living, similar to Phoenix, and this series showcased a surprising number of creative ways people had found to eliminate a mortgage payment. You may be aware of some traditional strategies like downsizing or sneaking in extra principal payments. However, these individuals and families were incredibly inventive. One man, who was a cabinet maker by trade, built a beautiful tiny house on his dad's property. He lived down the hill and kind of into the woods a little bit, so the son had privacy and independence, but living on the property enabled the dad to stay in his home. He'd just pop down to his son's house to have tea nearly every day so they could kind of check up on each other. It was really charming. Another couple renovated a horse truck into an RV and parked it at an old factory. The factory owner was pleased to have someone on the premises for security purposes, and the couple was happy to avoid expenses for lot rental or hookups. A family in London who wanted to escape to the country was able to snap up some farmland for basically $1 an acre and build a house. The only proviso from the local council was the family had to farm the land to preserve the heritage of the county. Since that's what they wanted to do anyway, it was a perfect solution. One episode featured an outbuilding which was converted into a tiny home and then sold as a separate property. The nearby factory had already been converted into lots, but they didn't really know what to do with this small oven or smelter. It was more vertically shaped, so the architecture on that conversion was really impressive. Along the same theme, another man purchased a tin church. It was originally what they call a flat pack building, one of the first prefabricated buildings available by mail order through a catalog. Can you imagine ordering a church through Sears? This guy had to put some money into it because it had absolutely no insulation, but the land and the structure were cheap, and now his whole home is a historic conversation piece. The reservoir home was particularly fascinating. The woman who owns it was a self-taught architect. She literally found classes on YouTube and Google and then drew up her own plans for an eco-friendly home. The land was classified as a brownfield, which means it's a contaminated property, like building a park over a landfill. Clearly that made the land super cheap, and the building commission worked with her because her home is now an example of a beautiful reclaimed property in their county. Another couple designed a home out of 3 shipping containers. The layout was really interesting because shipping containers are long and narrow, and it was a very creative use of an alternative prefabricated structure. One woman renovated a barge. That would work a little bit better in England, where they have a lot of navigable waterways, but I used to live in Seattle, where living on a boat or houseboat really could make sense. Perhaps the most creative idea from the whole show was this man who actually enlarged his home. He took out a loan to build an addition, then split the home into a duplex and sold the new part. The proceeds were enough to pay off not just the construction loan, but also the remaining mortgage on his original home. The idea was to continue to live in the home where he'd raised his kids, and the only part he lost was some of a living room and, of course, some of the yard. It was brilliant. The reason I shared all these examples with you is to help illustrate the concept that when the objective is clear, the path to the goal can be very short and non-linear. In none of these cases did people wait 30 years to trudge through a traditional mortgage amortization. When they got very focused on becoming mortgage-free, they opened themselves up to any wacky idea, and they are all hugely happy with the results. Were there compromises? Yes. In some cases, there were drastic lifestyle changes, such as living in a tiny home or becoming a farmer. However, the trade-offs were analyzed and weighed against the freedom of lower monthly expenses, and people were really happy with their choices. That's the real key to this step of getting serious, making choices. Everyone wants to believe you can have it all, but the truth is you can't have all of everything. You can have it all, but in modest amounts. The technical term is work-life balance, but the scale is weighted differently for each of us. This is another step that requires some deep self-reflection. You'll be making some kind of change, so what are you willing to do differently? Maybe you'll need to work more hours to get that promotion. Maybe you need to take a class to get qualified for something else. Maybe you're ready to change jobs to better align with your purpose. Maybe you need to start your own business to meet all your objectives. All these examples are additive. You're increasing the demands on your resources. You'll also need to rebalance everything else, which may mean letting go of some things. If you want to become a stay-home parent, it's likely you'll have to give up some career advancement. If you want to be the first person in your family to earn a college degree, you may need to give up some family night a couple times a week for night crosses. If your dream is to live in Italy, you may have to fork over a significant chunk of your savings. Starting your own business could cost you the internal peace of job security. Notice that not all these trade-offs are time-related. The goal for making a change could be, or the toll for making a change could be physical, psychological, monetary, etc. The trick here is to be very thorough and very realistic about the possible consequences and ripple effects when you're contemplating a change. I don't love the word compromise to describe this step because sometimes that has a negative association with loss. Think of it more as prioritization. What will give you the biggest bang for your buck? If you've done a great job in step one, it will be easier to compare and weigh the potential outcomes. The real reason that analysis is so critical is because it forces you to make active choices. Even if at the end of the day you decide not to make a change, at least that's now a well-informed, well-thought-out decision. You didn't just go with the flow or let life happen to you. Now, I'm no psychologist, but my personal theory of the midlife crisis is that people wake up one day, realize the life they have bears no resemblance to their idealized vision from childhood, and they have no recollection of how they got from dreaming of sports cars to driving a minivan. They either feel like they've been passively going along with things all their lives, or they suppress memories of any pivotal decisions, or at least their responsibility for any of those pivotal decisions. From a purely logical perspective, it does absolutely make sense to make a massive change if you are deeply unhappy, but the real lack in these situations is a feeling of control. That's what's missing. People in a midlife crisis feel this almost pathological need to assert control by making lots of decisions, even really bad ones, in a very short period of time. The cure to the midlife crisis, or the preventative measure against it, is to make more active decisions. Don't just go with the flow. Don't just accept things as they are, or as they turn out to be, passively, without acknowledging to yourself that you are, moment by moment, choosing your life. Every day you make micro decisions which affect long-term outcomes. Every bit of networking and prospecting and advertising leads to new sales. Every kind word, apology, and compliment leads to strong relationships. Real success comes faster and becomes more satisfying if you can appreciate each step in the right direction. To do that, you need to raise your level of awareness. Acknowledge to yourself your real intent, the forward steps, the sacrifices you're willing to make to manifest that in your life. For instance, owning the fact that you missed that school play because you had to travel for work doesn't feel good, and it may not look good to other people, but accepting responsibility does keep control in your hands. You aren't helpless. You made a choice. Now that you're in this serious, realistic frame of mind, let's take a little time for you to think through the possible ramifications of getting to success. Start with a brainstorming session of all the possible things you might have to do and let go. Later, you can go back and analyze each one individually. Taking time with this step simultaneously removes barriers, especially artificial ones, and solidifies determination because you see the path. If you find yourself writing something down and then immediately thinking, well, I can't do that because blank, keep it on your list. Do not automatically reject anything. You can take time later to get to the bottom of that instant denial by questioning your assumptions. This is a particularly helpful exercise with a coach or a therapist or that trusted kick your butt for your own good type friend. The final step in getting to success is to get started. Our icon for this stage is Mel Robbins, author of the 5-Second Rule. In her book, Mel recounts a time in her life where she was incredibly low. Job, marriage, kids, personal hygiene. Everything was, shall we say, not going well. Sounds a lot like last year, right? Well, she was able to pull out of that morass and ultimately become incredibly successful to the point that she got her own talk show. She realized the problem wasn't that she didn't know what to do. Most of us do already know what we should be doing to get to success. The problem wasn't even in her motivation. She did desperately want things to be different. The problem was with her momentum. She couldn't get going. She realized it was much easier to stay productive once she'd started, but that initial transition point from inaction to inertia was an ongoing problem. Now, spoiler alert, the big aha moment was one day visualizing herself counting down like a rocket and then launching out of bed. The countdown and then physical movement made all the difference. It got her out of her head and into her body. She was doing instead of just thinking about doing. My two big takeaways are, first, motivation is irrelevant. Wanting something with all your heart counts for jack if you don't actually take action. Secondly, physical movement is key to breaking a negative cycle. If you've studied habit theory, you know there needs to be an interruption of the existing routine. Otherwise, we stay stuck in our safe, comfortable, unproductive behaviors. In Mel's case, she was able to interrupt her self-destructive patterns by harnessing the power of an entirely different part of the brain. By surmounting that one obstacle with a relatively small and simple fix, she was able to entirely change her life. I'm reminded of the jet ski metaphor. Riding wave runners and jet skis is different than driving any other vehicle. You can coast on a bike. When you're driving a car, it moves forward as soon as you take your foot off the brake before you step on the gas. Even the Starship Enterprise keeps moving on impulse power when it drops out of warp. However, a jet ski must have water flowing through its propulsion system for the turning of the handlebars to be effective in any way. Otherwise, you simply float on top of the water, wiggling the steering column like an idiot. Life is like a jet ski. Now, the best thing to do is the right thing, to give it some gas and go forward. However, the wrong thing can still be good if that gives you the propulsion needed to turn around. The worst thing to do is just sit there bobbing and drifting aimlessly. Your life is a high-performance machine designed for fun. Don't treat it like a life raft used only for survival. Okay, so what can we do to put this third step into practice right now, immediately? Well, we need to physically do something. You could put up a note on your door or mirror reminding you to do something later tonight. You can pull up your calendar really quickly and send a meeting request to someone who can help you. Text a friend or a partner to let them know you want to set aside some time to talk to them. Maybe just switch your screen over to a browser and pull up that first page you're going to need to research when we're done here. If nothing else, add a task to your agenda to revisit the notes you've made in previous steps. This is too important to just let go. If you're spending time with me now, learning about how to get to success, then obviously it's important to you. Honor that investment by doing something productive with it. Okay, now that we've learned the 3 steps to success, let's run through a little case study. Now, I originally gave this presentation as a Toastmasters workshop. I've been a member for about a year, and I've really enjoyed myself and grown as a speaker. The objective for the seminar was to increase membership, but Toastmasters isn't a great fit for everyone. Here's an example of a traditional goal-based linear progression, which might lead the average person to join Toastmasters. They think, hey, I'll join Toastmasters so I can give a few speeches, get my face out there, network with a few members, and see if we can do business together. Then I can get a promotion, or whatever the ulterior motive really is. If you're thinking along these lines, then Toastmasters to you is just a stepping stone. It has no value except to get you a little bit closer to the next step, to the next step, to the next step, to get to the real prize. So members who join with this mindset generally don't stick around for very long because it's too roundabout an approach. Their ultimate objective is to get a promotion. So if things don't go exactly as planned, if they get thwarted at any stage, they get frustrated and leave. The club isn't at fault. It's simply a misalignment of objectives. If, on the other hand, what you really, really want is something more along the lines of improving your communication skills, well, we can definitely help you with that. Maybe you want to sound more professional and authoritative, project confidence, be heard, become persuasive and influential. How can you get that? Join Toastmasters, right? How can I get what I really, really want? Join Toastmasters. These are the areas in which we excel. The emphasis is on transformation and becoming, not on this transactional relationship with other members. Now, will you gain friends, business contacts, potentially clients along the way? Absolutely. But remember precision and accuracy. If you want professional contacts, join a networking group. If you need more friends, join a social group. The point is to start with your end objective and then match your new activity to that intent. Don't get 5 steps removed and think that you're moving forward when you could circumvent that entire process to get to what you really want faster. Now, if you are interested in joining Toastmasters, let's just say, then the next step would be to get serious about that objective. What might you need to do? Well, membership entails attending meetings. we expect members to give speeches, not just spectate endlessly, right? You can't just watch everyone do, you must also do as well. We also expect everyone to pitch in as a functionary. Not everyone is familiar with that term, but functionary just means you hold a role in the meeting. And that can be as simple as leading the group in the Pledge of Allegiance or telling a joke. So don't hyperventilate at the word functionary. There is also a small fee to join, but Toastmasters makes it remarkably affordable and non-committal because the dues are paid every 6 months. That's plenty of time to get real value out of membership, even if you're just testing the waters. However, you should also consider what membership would require you to let go. First of all, you may have to give up a lunch hour or work out once a week to go to the meetings. I would also budget 1 to 2 hours per month to write and prepare the speeches you're going to give. There's only time for 2 prepared speeches per meeting, and those last about 5 to 7 minutes. You probably won't get a turn more often than a speech every 1 to 2 months, depending on how frequently you sign up and how active the rest of your club is. Now, lastly, you may have to let go of some of your pride. People who think they're already very skilled at public speaking can be unpleasantly surprised and even humbled by the ah counter, another functionary role, who reports all their ums and uhs and you knows and stutters at the end of the meeting. People who are painfully shy or uncomfortable with public speaking also have to give up some level of pride when they allow themselves to feel embarrassed in a group setting. However, I will say that my own club, Risk Takers, in the Biltmore area, is particularly warm and welcoming. We are all learners, and we like each other too much to get hung up on flubs or flounders. The only thing you should take personally is our admiration for your courage and your participation. And trust me, we do appreciate it. Next, action steps. If you were at all curious about Toastmasters, then you are absolutely welcome to sit in on as many member meetings with as many different clubs as you like. Everyone has a little bit different flavor, and of course they all have different locations and times. You can find details on the club pages and on the official Toastmasters.org website, and many of the clubs have social media accounts on Facebook and such. When you're ready, you could fill out an online application. If you have questions or want an insider's perspective, you can call or email the membership contact for an individual club, and they'd be happy to talk to you about what they do and how their club is. If you're curious but want to ask me about my personal experience, here's my cell phone number. Now, when I originally gave this presentation, I cheated a little bit and snuck in a bonus 4th step. If you really want to shortcut the path to success, my best advice is to get support or recruit more people to help you get there. Now, I'm sure you recognize that handsome devil, Commander William T. Riker of the Starship Enterprise, as our emblem for this step. I picked him because, to me, he is the epitome of useful. If you're not a Trekker, Next Generation fans are Trekkers, not Trekkies, you may not fully appreciate how versatile this one character was. Not only did he stand in for the captain during everything from formal occasions to life or death battle, but he could also step into any other crew position on the ship when needed. He led the away teams, piloted spacecraft, fixed the engines, counseled with the captain, mentored senior staff, not to mention liaising with aliens, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. The point is, Riker was so competent and trusted that any delegation from Captain Picard was seamless. He simply made it so. In your own life, you probably won't be able to find one person who matches all the functionality of this one fictional paragon, but you can have as many crew members as you need. Maybe you need a life coach to help you through step 1. Maybe you need a house cleaner and a landscaper to free up some time in step 2. Maybe you need a partner to interrupt your usual unproductive patterns in step 3. The bottom line is, all of the steps become easier when you share the journey with someone else. All right, well, thanks for joining me today. We are going to stop the recording now and open it up for questions.